You are a fool. You are a fool. You are such a fool. You did it once again. You went out last night, overindulged. That particular sound you probably heard way too many times. Your liver is screaming at you this morning. Your brain is screaming at you this morning. But have no fear. The Maestro is here. It is time for your favorite politically incorrect pop culture commentary podcast. It is time for Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition, where we will nurse you through your hangover. Well, this week it's just me. Your Uncle Dave, the Conquistador, Dave Height, is off romancing his wife, celebrating their love, their anniversary, some schmaltzy bullshit like that. So you're stuck with me. But of course, you know, anytime it's just you and me, kids, the gloves come off. It is time to have some real fun. So fry up the eggs, start cooking the bacon, percolate the coffee, take some aspirin, and buckle in for, well, let's say about an hour and a half of politically incorrect, non-woke fun here on Saturday morning, June the 28th, 2025. Now, as always, we start off with music. And we are inching very, very, very close to the time when we'll start having a lot of concert reviews. Of course, your Uncle Dave had one for you last week. But the group, Dave and I, along with his wife, we've been doing this for years and years, decades. Going to see multiple concerts together every year. So that starts off mid-July with Quiet Riot and Aldo Nova. And then we will have a cascade of concerts all throughout August for you. But for right now, we review the new music. And when your Uncle Dave is gone, because this is the kind of benevolent dictator that I am, I will save the better stuff, the really good stuff, for when he's back. Now, unfortunately, right now, there's not a lot of that. And I kind of wish Bruce Springsteen had put out his Tracks 2 Best of collection in time for me to review it this week. It just came out yesterday, so I have not had time to listen to it. Obviously, record this a few days ahead of time. So I have had to subject myself for the music segment here to the new album from the Doobie Brothers. Now, when this was first announced, I was a little excited. I was like, hey, Michael McDonald's back. Just saw them in concert a few years ago. Sounded very, very good. Was looking forward to this. Hopefully recapturing some of the Doobie Brothers magic from the late 70s and early 80s. Now, the problem is they released so many songs ahead of time. Walk This Road only has 10 total tracks on it. And I am not kidding you. Before the official release date of the album, which I believe was maybe a month ago, roughly, give or take, I had heard 6 or 7 songs from this album already. And most of the songs they released ahead of time were not very good. This is an example of a band and their management and their record label not quite understanding what their fan base wanted. And I'll try to elaborate on that as we go through here. Now, it leads off with the title track, Walk This Road, which is okay. Little bit of a gospel-y tinge to it. It's got horns, slide guitar, features Mavis Staples helping out on vocals. Otherwise, it's Tom Johnston and Michael McDonald switching off with Mavis Staples. Um, Again, it's okay. I think the sad thing is that this ends up being one of the better tracks on the album. And again, I will say, I set my expectations so low for this album that it ended up being a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. Now, the second song is the best song on the album by far, Angels and Mercy. It features some fiddle, some harmonica, and this is Patrick Simmons taking the lead on this. And this is the song that most closely to me harkens back to 70s era Doobie Brothers. So this is by far my favorite song on the album. But as we go through, Call Me is dreadful, cheesy. I don't know what Tom Johnston was thinking with this song. And I'm not going to specify who wrote what songs, but I'm assuming that if a particular person is featured on lead vocals, it's probably their song. I know that's an assumption. That's why I'm qualifying my guess here. But yeah, Michael McDonald's songs, which I thought would end up being the high points of this album, are actually pretty much the weakest songs on Walk This Road. Learn to Let Go literally sounds like it was a leftover from the minute by minute sessions, maybe the One Step Closer sessions, because it's cringe inducing. The production value, again, obviously, it sounds about 40 years old. It does. State of Grace is better. Again, that's Patrick Simmons stepping in. His songs seem to be a little bit better than the rest. Where State of Grace isn't the greatest song in the world, but compared to what's around it, it's not bad. Here to Stay, Tom Johnston's pretty good. Pretty straightforward rock and roll song. This would probably be my second favorite after Angels and Mercy. Then you get Michael McDonald featured in a couple songs towards the end that aren't really all that great. And then the oddest thing to wrap up the review here of Walk This Road is that songs 8 and 10, number one, they're not very good, but we're getting to like travelogue territory here, where song 8 is New Orleans, and then song 10, which has been out for quite a while, is called Lahaina. And of course, this harkens back to the fires in Hawaii years ago, and Mick Fleetwood, of course, fellow rock and roll star, who suffered devastating losses, and of course he has ties to the community, so the Doobie Brothers decided to help him out, and that's where Lahaina comes from. So I know the heart is good there behind Lahaina. It's just a very mediocre song. So as you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of Walk This Road. I didn't think I was going to be, again, considering the fact that I'd heard well over half the album ahead of time and didn't like it. But there are a couple songs that are pretty solid. I'd say overall 3 to 4 songs that are worth listening to. I will give Walk This Road a very weak 2 frenzies. So that is a definite no recommendation. Not recommending it at all, but if you want to listen to it, you will probably feel the same way I do, where you're going to have to pick and choose the songs you like in the future. It's not going to be an album you're going to put in your heavy rotation at home. Trust me. And so, because I had to give Dave a little bit of shit about this, because he's already taken, what, 5 or 6 days off this year, which is way more than he would normally ever take off. Now, some of these were self-imposed because we had the internet issue, so that's not on him, but still. I told him, I said, well, if I've got to subject myself to this Doobie Brothers album, then I am going to review the new song from the Hives to try to balance it out. That's his punishment. So yes, I am reviewing the new song from the Hives, Paint a Picture, which is the second single from the upcoming album, The Hives, Forever, Forever the Hives. And if you guys have been listening to us for the past 4.5, 5 years, however long it's been now, and why haven't you been listening? Shame on you. You will know that the Hives are one of our favorite bands. So, the first single, I just absolutely love. Enough is Enough is a perfect song for these particular times that we're living in, where I literally put that song on and just scream it at the top of my lungs. Enough is enough with the stupidity, the idiocy, the hatred, and the spite in this world. Paint a Picture does not dial it down all that much. Paint a Picture where Enough is Enough seems to be more of a broader statement about the state of the world and the stupidity therein. Paint a Picture seems to be a little more personal. Obviously, if you get the reference of Paint a Picture, if somebody isn't getting what you're saying and you explain it over and over and over again and they're still not getting it, you get exasperated and frustrated, and then you go, what do you want me to do, paint a picture for you? So, take that, add in some cursing and some F-bombs, because the Hives are tending to get a little bit more harder-edged and punkish now in their later years, which I love. That's where you get the new song from the Hives. So, I will definitely recommend Paint a Picture. I will give Paint a Picture a strong 3 frenzies. And of course, we still have a few months to go, end of August, before we get the full album. So hopefully we'll get at least one more single, maybe 2, before the full album comes out. We can only hope. So to recap the music segment, Doobie Brothers, Walk This Road, Stay Away. Just a handful of songs on Walk This Road that are decent, listenable. But definitely check out the Hives, their new song, Paint a Picture. Now next week, as I said, the music situation's very fluid right now. Luckily, we've got a lot of new stuff coming out mid to late July into August. But for right now, your Uncle Dave does not like Bruce Springsteen, so we're not going to be reviewing the Tracks 2 collection. And no, I'm not talking about the entire 7-disc box set. I'm talking about the 20-track single disc best of that's out now. So I'll probably have to save that for another day off for the Conquistador. And the way things are going, that'll probably happen before the end of July. But we're probably looking at a cassette classic next week. Traveling back in time to look at an album from anywhere from the late 70s through the early 90s. An album that fell through the cracks. An album that, even though it was from a fairly popular artist, didn't resonate, didn't hit like maybe their previous albums, their future albums. I've got a couple that I'm juggling right now. It's my turn to make the pick. We alternate. Dave and I will alternate every other pick for cassette classics. And it's my turn. Since his last pick was Enough's Enough, even though he will claim that I bullied him into picking a specific album from Enough's Enough, it was still his choice to do Enough's Enough. So it's my turn to pick a cassette classic. And as I mentioned, I've got a couple. I've got a day or two here to make a decision before I will email or text the Conquistador and let him know what album to start listening to in preparations for next week. Now, of course, we also have our sports edition that hits late Wednesday, early Thursday every week. And I think I forgot to do something this week on the sports edition that your Uncle Dave would normally handle, and that is letting you know where you can find Sports Frenzy 2.0 out there in podcast land. You can find Sports Frenzy 2.0 on Spotify, Good Pods, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Not yet ready to pull the trigger on Instagram. Had a very bad week, let's put it this way, on the Facebook page. Not our specific Facebook page, but let's just say Facebook in general, where I am very, very down on, very soured on social media right now. And if you've got half a brain, you should be too. I'm not saying you only have half a brain. See? You're being sensitive, overly sensitive like all these other nitwits out in social media world. So why would I want to, if I've already got the Facebook page set up, why do I even want to subject myself to further disgusting comments about politics and influencers and all that garbage on Instagram? So I am on hold right now. I've pushed the pause button on putting Sports Frenzy 2.0 on Instagram for the time being. But all the other platforms I mentioned are valid. They are awesome. They have been our partners for quite a while, with the exception of YouTube, which is relatively new. And again, the problem with YouTube is begrudgingly letting us set up shop on their platform, but they don't like us all that much. I can tell already. They've already sent some nasty emails, not about the content, believe it or not. That's where I thought we would really run afoul of YouTube. But they're pushing us to go into video podcasting, and I still don't understand the appeal of video podcasting. Why do you want to see somebody sit in front of a microphone for an hour or an hour and a half talking into a microphone? If we do it like it's a radio show or an audio-only podcast, then you can be doing other things and listen to us in the background. You can multitask. Multitasking is a wonderful thing. You can be cooking dinner. You could be tending to your children. Well, maybe not tending to your children, given the content that we sometimes delve into. But you get my drift. All right, so let us move on. We're going to do things a little differently here. We're going to jump into our movie review of the week. Now, I kind of sort of messed this up. I had grand notions for what I was going to review here on the off week for the Conquistador, and things didn't work out like I planned. So I can tell you for sure next week I will have a review of The Monkey, based on the Stephen King short story, directed by Osgood Perkins, who I will tell you right now I am turning against very quickly after Longlegs, and I have watched part of The Monkey. And I'm wondering if this guy hasn't just kind of somehow lucked bass backwards into his Hollywood career as a director, because I was not impressed with Longlegs at all. But I thought, the monkey, how could he screw up the monkey? So far, he kind of has. But I'll have my full review of the monkey next week on the weekend edition here, Sports Frenzy 2.0. Then I was going to delve back into the Mission Impossible catalog for story time. Because, of course, last week I geeked out, as your Uncle Dave pointed out, as I recapped the final 2 movies in the series, including the brand new Final Reckoning. And I mentioned how the Final Reckoning does a really cool job of tying in not only a plot point from the very first Mission Impossible, which is still the best, thank you, Brian De Palma, and then ties in the 3rd movie that was directed by J.J. Abrams. So I went back and started watching Mission Impossible 3. Didn't get through it. And I'm not saying that because I've always declared I have watched all of the Mission Impossible movies multiple times. I love them all to differing degrees. 2 is the one I usually tend to avoid. But 2 and 3 are probably on my list of the 8 total Mission Impossible movies. Those are probably the bottom 2. I would say 2 is my least favorite, and then 3 is just a step above. But I wanted to give MI3 another chance, and again, I didn't quite get through it. So that one might be on the agenda as well for story time next week on the weekend edition. But the one movie I did get through, which is our featured review this week, is a little bit of traveling back in time. No, it's not Back to the Future. Now, of course, we always try to legitimize reviewing older movies by giving you the excuse that it's for story time, which means there's a legitimate reason behind why we decided to go back and watch these old movies again. In this case, it was because recently Kevin Smith got the rights back to Dogma. And he recently went out on tour, and he's had the movie playing in selective theaters. It actually did very well, from what I understand, made a couple $1 million in very limited engagements across the country. No, I did not watch Dogma, so maybe technically I cheated a little bit, but I got thinking about my favorite Kevin Smith movies. And I thought, isn't it about time, even though I pretty much do this every 2 or 3 years, isn't it about time that I revisit his most underappreciated movie? And no, it's not Cop Out. That was garbage. And he didn't write that anyway. He only directed it. No, it's not Chasing Amy. I have my issues with that, as you could probably guess. But it is Mallrats. Mallrats didn't stand a chance when it came out. Mallrats had to follow up the cult classic audience that had discovered Clerks, his first movie. Of course, famously, he put that together using family credit cards, I believe, and begging friends and family members for money. And of course, Clerks, deservedly so, became a phenomenon. Now, Clerks was, again, low budget, black and white, but it did have that typical Kevin Smith style of writing and directing. Now, some people will criticize his writing or his directing, depending on the type of film buff that you're dealing with. I kind of dig the way he does both. Now, I'm not saying he's a master at either. I think he's better at dialogue. He's much better at dialogue than at directing, but I think he gets hammered a little too much for his directing style. It's pretty much, to me, straightforward, nothing fancy. He is trying to service the dialogue more than he is trying to create something visually stunning. But the step from Clerks to Mallrats was he went from self-financed, low budget, black and white to Technicolor, much bigger budget studio project. And immediately, the movie snobs out there were, that was already two strikes against him because of all that. Oh, he's a sellout. Oh, look, he's already taken money from, I believe it was Universal, who helped finance Mallrats, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and that was not fair. That was not fair at all, because I will, yes, I will blaspheme, and I will say that Mallrats is a better movie than Clerks. Now, I love both of them. They are my two favorite Kevin Smith movies. But I just hold a special place in my heart for Mallrats because, number one, it speaks to an era that I grew up in, where everybody flocked to the mall. That was the social gathering place for the community before things got out of hand and it turned into an absolute disaster and mess. And of course, the younger generations became unintelligent, violent, and stupid. And then we started to have mall shootings, and everybody was afraid to go to the mall. And then, of course, online commerce kicked in, and malls, well, some still thrive. They definitely are not doing nearly as well as they did in their heyday. So if you have never watched Mallrats, Mallrats stars the great, the awesome Jason Lee as Brody, and you have Jeremy London as his friend. Now, whereas Jason Lee ended up being a fixture in the Kevin Smith View Askew-niverse, Jeremy London kind of dropped out pretty much after Mallrats. So you could say the same thing about Shannon Doherty, Claire Forlani. This movie, while it brought some people into Kevin Smith's fold and they stayed and they enjoyed it, that would also include one Ben Affleck as the proprietor of Fashionable Mail. Again, in many ways, in many aspects, this is a very polarizing movie for Kevin Smith, especially early on in his film career, like it was. He's trying to build something. He's trying to gather like-minded people around him. And again, he was very successful in with Jason Lee and Ben Affleck. Then, of course, he had Jason Mewes, but Jason Mewes had always been his friend, his sidekick. That wasn't going to change. But then he had a lot of bigger celebrities who came in and were basically one-off stars and never really came back into the fold again. But that doesn't mean what they did in Mallrats wasn't awesome, especially the great Michael Rooker. And you will never, ever, ever eat a chocolate-covered pretzel again after watching Mallrats. And you might look at riding in the back seat of a Volkswagen very differently as well. And I'm assuming most of you out there have seen Mallrats, but for the few of you who haven't, I highly recommend it. The plot, for what it is, the plot is both Brody and T.S., which is Jeremy London's character, both end up breaking up with their girlfriends at roughly the same time. So what do? They go to the mall to drown their sorrows in little teeny tiny cups of Coke and bitching and pissing and whining and moaning about life. which is standard in any Kevin Smith movie. Then, of course, both their girlfriends end up at some point in the day being at the mall as well. One kind of being forced to appear on a dating game show by her father, and the other being seduced by one Ben Affleck, once again the proprietor of Fashionable Mail. And so hijinks, hilarity ensue. Brody and TS have to try to get their ladies back while sabotaging the dating show that's going to happen in the center court of the mall, stopping Ben Affleck and his insidious plans, all the while being helped by, of course, Jay and Silent Bob. It doesn't get much better than this, kids. You can obviously tell I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I will not give it 4 frenzies, though. I will not give it 4 frenzies. It does have some minor flaws that keep me from going that far. It definitely deserves a strong 3.5 frenzies, though. It is an all-time classic. The criticisms I have, I don't think Claire Forlani is the greatest actress in the world. And same can be said for Shannon Doherty. And I think the difference between the two, and I'm not trying to pick on the female leads here. Hear me out. Shannon Doherty is obviously a more seasoned actress at this point. A very good actress. I think the problem with her performance is she doesn't... You have to basically get Kevin Smith's dialogue. When I say get it, you have to be very cognizant of how you pace what you're saying. And she just kind of runs through her lines in certain scenes. Just trying to spit them out as quickly as humanly possible, as if she's on a timer, versus maybe slowing it down just a tad, adding a little bit of nuance, a little bit of sarcasm. Claire Forlani, by the way, beautiful woman. Beautiful, beautiful woman. She just doesn't have the acting chops yet at this point. Especially early on in the movie. There's one specific scene where she's breaking up with TS where you can just... It's a little cringe-inducing to watch her try to emote as she breaks up with her boyfriend. Minor criticisms, absolutely minor criticisms. And in a movie like this, they could almost be called endearing flaws. But it keeps me from giving it the coveted 4 frenzies. But again, a strong 3.5 frenzies, as strong as I can possibly go without hitting 4. If, again, you're one of the few people out there over the years who have not watched Mallrats, you need to go out and watch it. It is hysterical. And then watch Clerks, and then watch Clerks 2, and then watch Clerks 3, and you will get sucked into the whole Kevin Smith universe. All right, let's knock out some entertainment news, shall we? Movies, TV, and streaming. Couple new trailers to discuss. This has kind of become a weekly feature here on the weekend edition. A new trailer is out for Weapons, and a new trailer, the final trailer, is out for Fantastic Four: First Steps. I just have all sorts of problems with the Fantastic Four, this particular iteration. I liked the first version. Of course, we're not going all the way back to Roger Corman and his infamous take on the Fantastic Four, which never got released. But I'm going back to the Jessica Alba, Ian Graffiud, I'm sure I butchered that, Chris Evans, of course, Michael Chiklis, that Fantastic Four, which of course had 2 movies. I enjoyed that version. The next one, of course, we all know was a disaster. I don't hate it as much as most people do. That, of course, featured, among others, Miles Teller was in that. And it was a bomb. It was one of the lowest grossing Marvel movies ever. It was very dark. Michael B. Jordan, of course, completely and totally woke miscast as Johnny Storm. So now we get the official 3rd version of the Fantastic Four. And I know I've ranted and ranted about this ever since it was announced. I don't like the retro look. I know a lot of people do. I just don't like the retro cheesy look of this film. It seems like it's very, very, I don't know, the emphasis on family. That's leading me to believe it's going to have a pathetic, soft, ooshy-gooshy heart to it. No, not achy-breaky heart. Ooshy-gooshy heart. That's going to piss me off. Because, yes, I do like things a little bit darker and more menacing. Hence, just like I said, I was a little bit kinder to that middle version of the Fantastic Four than other people were. And yes, we're going to get the Silver Surfer Galactus story all over again, which is fine. All these years have passed. Maybe we can do Galactus actually some justice. Of course, we have to have a woke female version of the Silver Surfer, and I know the comic book geeks out there are going, well, that's not true. That was in the comic books. Here's a news flash for you idiots, okay? Marvel Comics became woke right around the same time they were acquired by Disney. So yes, they started pushing woke storylines in the comics as well, years and years before the ideas eventually translated over to these terrible movies that we've gotten from Marvel/Disney over the last 6 or 7 years. Okay? Jane Foster as Thor. That was a woke, Disney-pushed storyline that they had to put into the Marvel Comics. So don't tell me it traces back to the comics, therefore it's accurate. Don't even bring it up unless it traces all the way back to either the late 80s or earlier. If it's anything after that, then it's bullshit. And a female Silver Surfer is bullshit. Okay? It should be Norrin Radd. And yes, I'm sorry. In the middle version, Johnny Storm isn't black. There, I said it, okay? Call me whatever names you want to. But I'm not down with this woke PC filling quotas, screenwriting, movie-making crap that Hollywood forces on us now. As I've always said, when I see a movie about Shaft as a white guy, then I'll stop bitching. Okay? So anyway, the final trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps. And by the way, I will discuss one Pedro Pascal a little bit more at the end of the show. And he's been saying what I've been saying all the time. He's finally come out and said, I'm getting so much criticism for playing Reed Richards. I'm too old. I need to shave. Yeah, you need to fucking shave because Reed Richards doesn't have a mustache. Another thing now, the comic books, revisionist history, are now drawing him with a mustache because they have to appease Disney and appease the movie side. Horse shit. So I can honestly say there is only one Marvel movie I have never watched, and that is The Marvels. Now we're talking about the official Marvel Comics universe. I have also not watched Madam Web. But outside of those two, I've pretty much seen everything else. I will tell you for sure, I'm not going to see Fantastic Four in the theater. I might watch it when it hits Disney Plus on streaming, if I still have Disney Plus at that point in time, which I may not. But it definitely does not look good to me as a diehard, lifelong comic books fan. Weapons, different story altogether. I am intrigued by Weapons, but I'm still not sure what the hell it's about. 2 trailers in, and I'm still, and I guess that's a good thing, is I'm getting sucked in with the mystery. Now, Dave has already speculated. He's just guessing. We're not spoiling anything here. He thinks it's got a Pied Piper kind of vibe going on, where the teacher, basically all these kids disappear. If you haven't watched the trailers yet for this upcoming horror movie, all the kids in this one class in the school disappear. They get out of bed one night, middle of the night, and just run off. And of course, the community's in a panic. They want to know what happened to their kids. And it turns out all the kids were, again, from one class led by one teacher, played by the very, very overrated Julia Garner, who, yes, is actually playing the Silver Surfer in First Steps, and was awful in my recent review of The Wolfman. She was great in The Americans, though, so I'm not going to bash her completely. And I know a lot of people liked her in, what was it, the Jason Bateman Netflix show? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But I know she won tons of critical acclaim for that show. We'll see how Weapons turns out. I'm intrigued enough to, let's say, I'll look forward to it on streaming, and I'll watch it right away when it hits streaming. I still don't think it's enough to pull me in to the theater, although I'm sure somehow, some way, if there's a big plot twist, and it looks like there is, some idiots out there, including those in the media, because they love to do this, will spoil it within 6 hours of its initial release in theaters. Your Uncle Dave and his sons are huge fans of Highlander. We have news about the beginning of filming of the new version of Highlander. Of course, it will star Henry Cavill, and now we have been told that Russell Crowe will be taking on Sean Connery's role as the mentor. Of course, as we reference back to the original Highlander film series. I was never a huge Highlander guy. Not bashing it. Not bashing it at all. Just never really gave it a shot. Maybe some point in time here before the new version comes out, I'll go back and watch the original. Some people have told me the original movie, the first one, is the only one really worth watching, with, as I mentioned, Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert. Great news on the Marvel front. I just spent the better part of, 5 minutes bashing Marvel, if not longer. They are actually doing something smart. we know that one of the few Marvel movies that we are all looking forward to comes out next summer, and that is Spider-Man, Brand New Day. The Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland have been exceptional. Fingers crossed that they stay exceptional. And this is one reason why I am optimistic. John Bernthal's version of The Punisher will appear in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And if you know anything about comics, yeah, I'm kind of geeking out on the comics this week, I know. The Punisher made his very first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man. So this fits beautifully. And John Bernthal has done a tremendous job as Frank Castle. He has said on numerous occasions he will not let Disney tone down the Punisher. He will not let Disney ruin the fans' vision for the Punisher. Old school fans, I should say. So that is tremendous news. Makes you wonder, tying into that storyline, that initial Punisher storyline from way, way back, I believe in the early 70s, 1971 maybe? I've got the picture of the cover in my head, ingrained in my head. It's just awesome. It's one of the most iconic, classic comic book covers of all time. I do believe the Jackal, no, not the assassin from the Frederick Forsyth novel, but the Spider-Man villain, the Jackal, was an integral part of this. So we will see how the Punisher will fit in here into the Spider-Man universe in Brand New Day. But I gotta say, that is a theater viewing for me. I will definitely go out amongst the unwashed masses to watch Spider-Man Brand New Day next summer. Then, of course, we've got Stephen King. Yeah, I mentioned I'm going to finish watching The Monkey here at some point in the next week. And I here's the thing with Stephen King. I admire his writing beyond all belief. I think he is a top-level author. I mean, that's an obvious statement. Who wouldn't consider him one of the most important, prolific, and best writers of the last 50 years, right? But as you guys all know by now, I hate his politics. I think he's an idiot when he opens his mouth and starts talking about politics. He's another celebrity who thinks he's smarter than everybody else because he can write a book. And trust me, I've tried. Writing a book is very, very, very hard. It requires a special amount of discipline, a special level of creativity that most of us will never achieve. But that doesn't mean he knows about world events and politics. And how many times do we have to keep saying this on this podcast? Celebrities and athletes aren't smarter than you and I. They have special skill sets which earn them millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. But those skill sets do not translate to knowing about world events, sociology, economics, and politics in general. But on top of that, I'm done with that, okay? For now. On top of that, just in terms of his creative output, he's a whore. Okay? There's no other way to say it. He's a whore. Now, your Uncle Dave and I read tons of books. We read tons and tons of books. Well, he reads tons and tons of books. I read like a normal person. I read anywhere from 12 to 15 books a year. He usually quadruples my output at least. But there are certain authors that we both like, respect, and admire. And a lot of these authors are very protective of their properties. Jonathan Kellerman comes to mind, as we've never seen anybody even attempt to adapt Alex Delaware for the big screen or the small screen. Clive Cussler has been very, very, now of course he's passed, he's no longer with us, but his estate have been very, very protective of Dirk Pitt. Now they let a couple movie companies take a shot at adapting Dirk Pitt, and the estate was not happy. Clive Cussler was not happy. I do believe he was alive when both of the movies were made. We're talking about Raise the Titanic back in the 70s, and then, of course, a couple decades later, we got Sahara. Now, I liked Sahara. I thought Sahara was fun. Matthew McConaughey wouldn't be my pick for Dirk Pitt, but I tend to be a little more forgiving when it comes to this type of stuff. I still like the Tom Cruise, Jack Reacher movies, but we all know there's no way that Tom Cruise comes close to fitting the physical description in the books of Jack Reacher. Alan Rickson, of course, who does the Amazon Prime Video series, much, much closer to being Reacher physically. Much, much better. But my point is, these authors create these characters, create these universes. And when they're popular and they can continue to write about the same protagonist and the people around him, they consider it a blessing, as they should. So they are very cautious about who they let take their books, their intellectual property, and who they let adapt these works in terms of making them TV shows and movies and the like. Stephen King doesn't give a rat's ass. It's pretty obvious to me. Stephen King will, hey, we're gonna do Salem's Lot for the 15th time. Go for it, Carrie. Oh yeah, 14 times for Carrie. Let's do it. The Shining, yeah, let's do the 6th time for The Shining. That's great. When do I get my check? When do I get my money? He doesn't give two rip shits about anything other than making money. And it's his right to. He created these characters and these stories. And he's right. If he wants to, he can farm them out to whomever he wants as many times as he wants. But you know what? He's a whore. Because now we're getting another version of The Stand. It has been announced that Doug Liman will be directing a feature film version of The Stand for Paramount. And yes, I know I exaggerated about 15 times here, 14 times here. But let's be honest, okay? He doesn't care about the sacred value of his work. He just wants to cash paycheck after paycheck after paycheck. We have had multiple versions of Pet Sematary. Now we're on the 3rd version, by my count, of The Stand. We've had 3 different versions of Salem's Lot. I believe we're going on our 3rd or 4th version of Carrie, because now that's going to be a series. We've had a couple different versions of The Shining. I could go on and on and on. We're getting our 2nd version of Cujo. We're getting our 2nd version of The Running Man. Do you see where I'm going with this? Stephen King does not care. I have never seen anything like this in my life, where an author will just continue to let his property get redone, rebooted, reused over and over and over again. It's his right. I'm not saying that it's not his right. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I personally just find it offensive. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I would like to see some of my favorite characters from book series that I read come to life on the big screen or the small screen. I think Alex Delaware would be a phenomenal series on streaming if done properly. Kind of like what we had recently here with Harry Bosch, Michael Connelly's LA Detective. We've seen John Sanford's Lucas Davenport. Now, he botched that. I don't know if he signed away control and didn't get a say in how they took Lucas Davenport and adapted him for TV, but the two versions of Lucas Davenport we've seen have been awful. Now, you got to go way back to find them, but Mark Harmon of NCIS played Lucas Davenport, and believe it or not, Eric LaSalle of ER played him. And that, again, was woke before woke even existed. Sorry, I went off on a rant about this, but I'm very passionate about this. If you are blessed and fortunate enough to have this gift, to have this ability to write great books and have them actually sell, I would just like to see the author take a little more care with his property than just to whore it out for a paycheck every chance he gets. I'm looking forward to this on TV and streaming. Next Friday night, July the 4th, Sinners will finally be out on streaming. Sinners will be out on HBO Max on July the 4th. I am looking forward to this. I have heard great things about Sinners. And yes, I know, I didn't rip Michael B. Jordan. I ripped the casting. He was not Johnny Storm. Okay, it's got nothing to do with, I think the guy's an unbelievable, extremely talented Hollywood icon. Right now, he is a Hollywood icon. Nothing he does right now is wrong. Everything turns to gold. Whether he's doing the Creed series or now with Sinners, which was a mammoth hit at the box office, far exceeding any and all expectations. I believe right now domestic box office is over $275 million, which is ridiculous. The guy is the golden child right now in Hollywood. And the only problem I have is that he did not need to be cast in the Fantastic Four as Johnny Storm. But I am looking forward to seeing Sinners. Paramount Plus has renewed Mobland for season 2. I look forward to, I'm going to sign back up here in another month or so once Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 3 kicks off. Then I will jump back on Paramount Plus, and then I'll start watching season 1 of Mobland, because it looks like the type of show I would love, with Pierce Brosnan and Tom Hardy and, of course, Helen Mirren. Now, speaking of Paramount Plus, boy, these streaming services are still taking their baby steps, aren't they? We had the news recently that Max will now become, once again, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Max will now revert back to being HBO Max again. Because we can't disregard our legacy. Well, you sure as hell did for a while, didn't you? I love when they try to do the PR spin on this crap. They won't just admit, we made a mistake. It was dumb to lop HBO off the name. We should never have done that. So now Paramount plus Showtime So you have Paramount Plus, and then, of course, you can tack on Showtime. And that's been known for quite a while as Paramount Plus Showtime. Well, no, that's too confusing. That's way too confusing. I don't know why. So now it will become Paramount Premium. Paramount Premium will now be the new name for the top tier in your Paramount Plus subscription. And then what are the odds? Should we take odds, kids, on how much will it be a year? Will it be nine months? Will it be 18 months before they go, we're going to switch back to Paramount Plus Showtime because people forgot that Showtime even exists because we took it out of the name. What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet? Then finally, admitting a mistake. We will do that from time to time here on Sports Frenzy. If it's factual, we will admit factual mistakes. We missed out last week. We definitely missed out. We needed to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the release of Jaws, the movie that changed everything. June the 20th was the 50th anniversary. 8 days ago. And here's the thing. Let me just talk for a minute about Jaws. And then we'll head to TV and streaming. That'll be real quick. And we'll take you down the home stretch. But here's the thing with Jaws. I don't think anybody really considers Jaws their favorite movie of all time. I mean, I've always said, every movie ever made, somebody out there likes it. Okay? But Jaws, everybody loves. That's the thing. Even though I don't know if anybody really looks at it and says, Jaws is my favorite movie ever, everybody loves Jaws. Everybody acknowledges the significance of Jaws, the sheer and utter brilliance of Jaws. It kick-started the summer movie blockbuster. It kick-started the career of Steven Spielberg. It has some of the greatest lines in movie history. You're gonna need a bigger boat. So I would be remiss if we did not acknowledge here on Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition, the greatness that is Jaws, as its 50th anniversary has just passed. Now, next week, I've already told you about the music. Probably going to be doing a cassette classic review. We are going to start reviewing Countdown, which just started here a few days ago on Amazon Prime Video, of course. This is the action series starring Jensen Ackles. I will start reviewing Squid Game 3, which is out on Netflix right now as you're listening to this on Saturday morning, June the 28th. It's going to take some time for your Uncle Dave to catch up. He said he's going to wait and watch seasons 2 and 3 together, which makes perfect sense. But I did watch 2, so I'm going to jump right into season 3. And then, as I mentioned, I will have a review of The Monkey, possibly Mission Impossible 3, and maybe another special review for you when it comes to the movies next week. So now we head into TV and streaming here on Saturday morning, June the 28th, 2025. I admit I've fallen behind on some of the shows that the Conquistador and I normally watch together. I did not watch any new Poker Face episodes this week, so I'm about 3 or 4 behind on that. I'm not sure how I feel about season 2 right now. I still like the writing style I still like how it's an homage to Columbo and the Sunday Night Murder Mystery on NBC. Natasha Lyonne is starting to grate on my nerves a little bit, though. She is starting to get on my nerves. There's no nuance to her performance anymore. It's just the same week after week after week, and she's starting to turn into a red-haired James Cagney. It's just she's starting to irritate me a little bit. But I, of course, will finish up season 2, and then in a couple weeks, your Uncle Dave and I will have a full review of season 2 for you. Also, did not finish Resident Alien season 4. I'm still only about halfway through the second episode, so I'm a couple behind on that as well. I will play catch up on that, although I don't know when or how, now that we've got new shows entering into the mix. As I mentioned, Countdown and Squid Game 3 are now in play. Now, Duster's only got a couple episodes left, and I am catching up on Duster every week. It's a heck of a lot easier for me if I just set aside the time to watch one episode a week, so I'm not a binge guy. Very rarely do I binge watch shows. I will binge watch Reacher. I will binge watch Stranger Things. But outside of those two shows, I normally like to take it easy and just watch one episode a week, like when I was growing up in the good old days. So I am caught up on Duster. We're through 6 episodes. I still am torn on this. I will give you my full breakdown once we get through episode 8, and I can give you a review of the entire first season. And I've already bitched and pissed and moaned about my problems with it in past episodes. This current episode is fine, but we're seeing every episode starting to have the same recurring plot line, which is somebody has found out about the connection between the driver and the FBI agent, and they need to shut them up one way or another, bribe them, kill them, whatever it might be. And that seems to be every week the main gist of the plot. But since we've only got 2 episodes left, I would say that's coming to an end pretty soon. I have no clue if Duster is doing well enough to warrant a second season. I don't know where they would go in the second season, so we'll leave it for the last 2 episodes. Maybe they will set something up that would make a second season intriguing. But again, just like I said with Poker Face, in a couple weeks here, we'll have a full season review of season 1 of Duster on HBO Max for you. I do have a new show. In addition to the fact Countdown, Squid Game are starting up, I got sucked into The Waterfront. Now, The Waterfront is on Netflix. Just started here recently, 8 episodes. This comes from Kevin Williamson. Kevin Williamson, most well known for the Scream movies as well as Dawson's Creek. Now, I was a huge fan, and so was your Uncle Dave, of Animal Kingdom, which aired for, I want to say, 6 seasons, maybe 5 or 6 seasons on TNT. Absolutely brilliant crime drama, all around a crime family. Now, this particular crime family was on the west coast of the United States. The Waterfront takes us to the east coast, North Carolina, where we have another family. Now, this family isn't quite as insidious as the family in Animal Kingdom was. And you're wondering, why am I comparing and contrasting these two shows? There is a connection. One of the sons, the actor who played one of the sons in Animal Kingdom, plays the son in The Waterfront. That would be Jake Weary. Very different Very, very different character. Um, I'm not going to say any more than that, at least for now. Once we get to the full season review, which could be coming sooner rather than later, since I've already knocked out 4 episodes out of the 8. But yeah, Jake Weary, completely different character from what he played in Animal Kingdom. But again, the Waterfront deals with this East Coast shipping fishing family. They have a fishing business. They have a restaurant. The shipping part, yeah, that part's illegal. But they're torn. They're torn between getting out of that, or should they stay in to help pay off some of the debts they have. The patriarch of the family is played by the great Holt McElhaney. And if you don't know who Holt McElhaney is, you'd recognize him the minute you see his face. He's been in a ton of stuff. Most recently, he was all over the TV in the commercials for Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. He's the guy who says, "You gave him an aircraft carrier," referencing Ethan Hunt. But he is awesome. One of my favorite actors. He plays the patriarch who, again, is torn between many different vices. Let's put it that way. Then his wife is played by Maria Bello. She's awesome. She's kind of got to balance out everything. Where her husband is the more impetuous, angry side of things, she is the cold, calculating businesswoman. But she still has her weaknesses as well. And then where Jake Weary plays the son, who seems like he's in way too far over his head, you have the daughter, Melissa Benoist, who of course you would know as Supergirl from all her years on the CW. She plays the troubled daughter who is trying to stay sober. Very, very questionable past. Very impetuous, very impulsive. I don't want to say any more without spoiling the plot. Suffice to say, she's in rehab, goes to meetings, but as we usually see in TV and movie dramas, when it comes to this type of thing, it is a constant struggle, and usually things don't end well. So like I said, I'm halfway through season 1 of The Waterfront. Halfway through, we get another big name actor who comes in. I don't want to tell you who that is yet. Give you guys another week or two to watch before I do any kind of a casting spoiler. But you do get another big name actor enter into the fray in episode 4. So far, I'm enjoying it. I don't think I would say I like it as much as I liked Animal Kingdom, but there are obvious comparisons to the two shows. And I'll dig more into those once again when we get to the full season review here in a couple weeks. But I do have one quick TV series review for you. Tires on Netflix, season 2. Now, of course, this is a low-budget, silly, raunchy comedy starring Shane Gillis. First season was very short, only 6 episodes. And when you consider the episodes are only about 22 minutes apiece, yeah, you could knock out season 1 in 2 hours. So season 2 is a little longer, it's twice as long. You get 12 episodes in season 2. And I enjoyed it as much as the first. I did. Now, when you're given 12 episodes as opposed to 6, you get more time to develop the characters, and that's a big part of season 2. So I did like that a lot about season 2, where we get to know some of the outside characters a little bit more. Plus, you got more chances to fit in big time guest stars. We get 3 or 4 of those, including one who comes in and decides to stick around for a while. We have kind of sort of a cliffhanger at the end of season 2. Um, but it's actually more of a positive cliffhanger. It looks like things might be turning around for Valley Forge Auto, the tire company, of course, that is central to the story here. Along with Shane Gillis, you've got Steve Gerben, who plays his cousin, haggard, harried, a little bit clueless when it comes to running his particular store. But he's got a good heart. And of course, Shane Gillis always somehow goads him and teases him into saying the absolute wrong thing at the absolute wrong time. And that's the dynamic. That's what really makes Tires work. I will recommend Tires. I will give it a solid 3 frenzies. I'm trying to convince Dave to watch this, but he said he dabbled, stuck his toe in the water for season 1 and wasn't all that impressed. So I don't know if this is going to be his cup of tea. I'm kind of surprised, because if I had to lay money on it, I would have said he would have liked this. So he might revisit it. I might bring up my review next week when he returns, just to kind of goad him a little bit into watching it. But I decided to do it this week because I know he's not really prioritizing it right now, so I figured that'd be a good time for me to pass along the positive review to you for Tires Season 2 on Netflix. And that leads us to Moments of Silence. Teen idol Bobby Sherman passed away. Now, you've got to be of a certain age group to know who Bobby Sherman was. When I was a kid, and I would go to the grocery store with my mom, I would basically beg her to just leave me by the magazines. Let me look at the magazines. No, get your mind out of the gutter, people. I was not looking at porn most of the time. I would read Billboard magazine, the horror magazines. Fangoria, yeah, I would dive into those. But you couldn't help out of the corner of your eye, while you're looking at all the good stuff, you would see all the other magazines, and you would see Teen Beat. And of course, it was either, the cover was either the Bay City Rollers, Sean Cassidy, or Bobby Sherman. So that really is the extent of my knowledge of Bobby Sherman. He was not the top teen idol of the time back in the early and mid 70s, but he had a presence, let's put it that way. So thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of Bobby Sherman. Then we lost a big-time heavyweight in the world of rock and roll. And again, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame fucked somebody over again. They waited and waited and waited as long as they possibly could to put Bad Company into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now keep in mind, at least Mick Ralphs, one of the founding members of Bad Company, one of the 3 key members of Bad Company, at least got to hear the news that Bad Company will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The problem is, they haven't had the induction ceremony yet, and now, unfortunately, Mick Ralphs of Bad Company and Mott the Hoople has passed away. And we see this all the time, over and over again. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame. They love to do this, where they will wait and wait and wait, and then when they think they might be able to sneak it in right before a person dies, and usually they're wrong and it's too late, this is the kind of stuff that happens. So thoughts and prayers to Simon Kirke, Paul Rogers, the extended Bad Company family, and all the friends and loved ones of the great Mick Ralphs. And then finally, personally, this is one you guys, most of you will not know the name. I will have to explain. Gaylord Sartain has passed away. Did you ever see the movie The Hollywood Knights? If you haven't, you need to watch this movie. It is a raunchier take on American Graffiti. It was basically put together as a knockoff of American Graffiti, but kind of like with more of a Caddyshack type vibe to it. Not really so wholesome and nice. And Gaylord Sartain will forever be in my personal Motion Picture Hall of Fame for playing Officer Bimbo. For not only the line, "Your ass is grass, and I'm a lawnmower," but of course his beautiful rendition of Lawrence of Arabia. He was an Englishman, he came to fight the Turkish. You have got to watch the movie. Gaylord Sartain gives one of the greatest comedic performances of all time as Officer Bimbo. And personally, I'm heartbroken. He will be missed. And of course, we extend condolences to his family and friends. And of course, that leads us inevitably to our pivot, where now we will talk about the morons, the stupid people, the idiots of the world. It is time for your nominees for the weekend edition Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week. We have 5 nominees. First up, I'm nominating my home state. If you guys have not figured it out by now, the Sports Frenzy studios are in Indiana. We started off on public access television in Indiana in the early 90s. It has been our home on and off ever since. Indiana decided to pull one of the biggest dumb boner moves of all time. They want to act like they're New York. They want to act like they're California now, which means they basically want to drive people out of the state, screaming and yelling and trying to hold on to their purses and wallets for fear that the state will just drain them dry. And in this case, Indiana is even worse than New York and California. Indiana has just become the first state in the union to approve tolls on all interstate roads in the state. I'm not going to get into specifics. You don't care if you don't live in Indiana. I get that. Maybe you have some sympathy if you live in a state where there are a lot of toll roads. But this is pathetic. This is absolutely pathetic, and it all stems from mismanagement of a budget surplus from a few years ago that is now, mysteriously turned into a budget deficit. And this is the overreaction to that. Anytime you overreact, bad things are going to happen. So not only have we got a mess when it comes to property taxes in this state, but now we have the infamy of being labeled the first state ever to approve tolls on all interstate roads. Way to go, Indiana. Way to go. All right, you guys all know about the disaster that we had earlier this year with Snow White. Of course, Disney loves, just like Stephen King, Disney loves to take their properties and redo them and remake them over and over and over again. Now, I will admit it's kind of interesting to take an animated movie and then turn it into a live action movie. So I will allow that. I am magnanimous. I will allow that. It's always interesting to see how that works. So now we're well into this trend with Disney where they are, of course, going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching with their bank accounts, cash registers, as they rake in the money from whether it's just straight on sequels like Moana 2, or, you know, we had The Lion King here recently. We had, oh God, it seems like dozens. I know it hasn't been dozens, but I mean, years ago we had Dumbo and we had The Little Mermaid, and that caused some issues, but it still did fairly well at the box office. Well, we all know the one that really failed miserably was Snow White here this year, earlier in 2025. A lot of it had to do with the fact that the woman they cast as Snow White was a mouthy twit. She couldn't wait to get on social media and spout every crass, uninformed political view that she could. And people, even before Snow White came out, said, we don't want anything to do with this movie if this is the idiot that's going to be playing Snow White. One of the most beloved children's characters of all time. And sure enough, her rants, her ravings helped sink Snow White. Didn't even make $90 million domestically at the box office. That's a big-time disaster. So, somebody has decided, wow, that Rachel Zegler, the one that sunk Snow White, you know what we should do? We should see about signing her up for a new musical production of The Sound of Music. Yeah, to play the Julie Andrews role. Wouldn't that be smart? I'm not kidding you. This is how stupid a lot of the people in Hollywood and in entertainment are. Somebody actually has put out there that they are exploring the possibility of casting Rachel Zegler in the Julie Andrews role in The Sound of Music. I mean, it doesn't get any stupider, any dumber than this. Now, sensitive topic here for our third nominee. Your Uncle Dave and I always tread very lightly when it comes to the hashtag #MeToo movement. Because while its intentions are good, like every other special interest group, yeah, I'm looking at you, Alphabet Mafia, they take things way too far. They are more than happy to condemn the innocent along with the guilty. Look up the Duke lacrosse scandal. But there are some cases where there are just idiotic dumbass men who will do idiotic dumbass things, and they should be thoroughly and completely punished for it. And in this case, we're talking about Martin Kove. Martin Kove, of course, from Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid movies, was recently at something called SummerCon in Washington State. And one of his co-stars was there, one Alicia Hannah Kim. And from what I read, she was walking by his booth or his table, whatever he was doing, signing stuff, and he grabbed her arm and bit her. Yeah, you heard that right. He grabbed her arm and bit her. And then I guess when she kind of pulled her arm back and jumped in shock and yes, pain, because he bit her. It wasn't a nibble, it was a bite. He tried to grab her arm again to kiss it. I guess to make it feel better? Ew. This is the type of stuff where men like me and your Uncle Dave get mad at fellow men. We try to sit here and defend men because we are under attack every single day in this country. The world wants white men to go away. Young white men, old white men, middle-aged white men, they are supposed to go away forever. Martin Kove ain't helping the matter when he pulls this type of boneheaded bullshit. I apologize on behalf of all men for Martin Kove's behavior. This is not who we are. Don't buy into it. He's a one-off, he's a moron, he's an exception, and he is indeed a dumbass. Now, I just mentioned the Alphabet Mafia, so let me piss off the Alphabet Mafia, because they are no better than a criminal enterprise. They are no better than an organized crime family, and I have proof. There's a lot of debate going on in New York City right now. I guess you've got a few gambling casino licenses up for grabs. And Caesar's Palace is trying to get one of those as they want to build a casino in the heart of Times Square. But here's the part where we bring in the Alphabet Mafia. And there's a reason why they're called the Alphabet Mafia again, because they are an organized crime family. Caesar's Palace, thinking this is a great PR move and won't look corrupt in any way, shape, or form, says, well, if you give us one of those gambling casino licenses for Times Square, we'll pledge $5 million to an LGBTQ plus health center. What the fuck does one have to do with the other? Seriously. What the hell does building a casino in Times Square have to do with pledging money to an Alphabet Mafia health center? Unless, again, we're dealing with corruption involving one of these fringe, crazy groups that we have to deal with now each and every day of our lives, who all they do is protest and stop traffic and cause chaos and anarchy. And now Caesar's Palace is going to pay them off, basically, to get them, what, on their side so they can build a casino? How does that make any sense whatsoever? It's pathetic pandering, and it makes Caesar's Palace look like a bunch of dumbasses. Then finally, knew we couldn't get through without politics. Representative Hank Johnson. And this is why people are leaving the Democratic Party in droves, is because this is not the Democratic Party of 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're all nut jobs now. Look at Chuck Schumer. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Bernie Sanders. And now Representative Hank Johnson, Democrat from Georgia, recently posted a video doing his own version of the Jimi Hendrix classic, Hey Joe. You want to talk about disturbing. I mean, the guy's unbuttoning his shirt. He can't tune a guitar. He can't play a guitar as he tries to sing Hey Joe, except turn it into an anti-Trump rant. I'm paraphrasing, but he changes the lyrics to something like, hey Trump, where you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going to go shoot democracy down. These are the elected officials that we're putting in office. We got some problems, people. And I didn't even mention the fact that this is the same gentleman who, on record, I believe it was during a congressional hearing, expressed his concerns that Guam might be overpopulated and therefore could tip over or capsize due to overpopulation. So there you go. Your 5 dumbass nominees for the week are the state of Indiana, Representative Hank Johnson, Caesar's Palace, Rachel Ziegler and whoever wants to put her in The Sound of Music, and Cobra Kai's Martin Kove. So as always, when your Uncle Dave is not here, I will need your help. I will need your assistance. You're going to have to send me some comments, post something on the Facebook page, let me know who you think the Red Foreman Pop Culture Dumbass of the Week is. Now, if you want my opinion, I hate all of them. And no, I am not going to pick on the state of Indiana, even though this is just stupid and greedy beyond all belief, because it's eventually going to happen everywhere. That's the kind of negative thinking I engage in. I am not just a doomsayer in real life. I also play one on a podcast. A conspiracy theorist, call me whatever you will. You're not paranoid if they are indeed out to get you. Boy, this is tough. This is tough. I mean, really tough. The Rachel Ziegler thing I could care less about. We see that every day in Hollywood. But the other 3 are just neck and neck to me. I'll go begrudgingly with Martin Kove because, again, you could tell I'm very passionate about the fact that one idiot man makes all of us men look bad when he does stupid stuff like this. But yeah, Caesar's Palace should be disgusted with themselves for pandering to the alphabet mafia, and Representative Hank Johnson just happens to be another in a long line of stupid, embarrassing politicians. All right, so that leads us to the conclusion of the podcast, which now is Last Call. Don't do Last Call every week, but when something strikes my fancy, I will go ahead and take a couple extra minutes to get this off my chest because it doesn't necessarily fit in any other parts of the podcast. Now, I skipped Last Call on the sports edition this week because there wasn't anything particularly engaging or thought-provoking. But I do have something here in the pop culture edition to wrap things up. And I want to talk about Bill Maher. And I want to ask you people a simple question. Are you allowed to change your mind? Are you allowed to, after years of looking at the facts and looking at events, are you able to say, hey, things have changed, or maybe I was wrong about that? It seems like Bill Maher's not allowed to do that. Bill Maher, he was furthest from me in terms of political takes 4 or 5, 6 years ago. I couldn't stand the guy. Never saw eye to eye with him on anything. Now, over the years, He has changed his viewpoints, softened on some, hardened on others. And recently, on his HBO Max show, he pulled out a couple points that I absolutely 100% agree with him on. Number one being The View. After Whoopi Goldberg had the audacity to compare black people living in America today to the plight of the Iranian people under the Ayatollah's regime, Bill Maher had enough and said, can we do something about The View? Can we somehow figure out a way to get this off the air? I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he was saying. And I've been saying this, and your Uncle Dave has been saying this for years. The View is trash. They are not intelligent women. They are stupid, stupid women. That's why they're all on the plane of doom. Is because we don't need people like this with their uninformed opinions spouting off on national TV, firing people up. Who in God's name made Whoopi Goldberg an expert on anything? And Joy Behar's 10 times worse. She's just a spiteful, hateful woman. Dare I say, bitch. And Bill Maher's right about this. And then he went on to say, isn't it about time we stopped in commercials and especially on sitcoms making the father always a bumbling idiot? Isn't it about time we made fathers somebody to look up to on these shows instead of always making them out to be morons and idiots? Which I have, again, along with your Uncle Dave, have said for years and years and years. Is that how insecure the female population is out there? Between listening to the idiots on The View and taking what they say as gospel and having to degrade and debase men all the time in TV shows and commercials to make themselves feel better and smarter? Is that where we've come in this life, in this world? So kudos to Bill Maher for saying what most people won't say. Having the balls, having the guts to say what most people won't say. And yes, he has changed. These are not things he would have uttered 5 or 6 years ago. He has realized, like a lot of people have, that the liberals in this world have gone off the deep end. And it's time for some sanity and some common sense. And to tie in one last thing to this, Pedro Pascal. Despite what you think about him as an actor, I personally can't stand him. He always gravitates to terrible, woke garbage like The Last of Us. And I can't wait to see how he destroys Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four First Steps. And again, I'm one of the people that said, yeah, shave the fucking mustache off. Reed Richards doesn't have a fucking mustache. But now, with Bill Maher. Bill Maher's getting a lot of criticism about how he's changed so much over the years. He's not allowed to change his viewpoint. He's now being accused by some, and I'm paraphrasing here, of being a bully now. For the right-wingers, for the Republicans, for the conservatives, which I don't think is the case at all. He, like me, is in the middle. Okay? You can be in the middle. You should be proud to be in the middle, which means you research both sides. You can like or dislike things on both sides. That's called common sense. But Pedro Pascal, of course, since he's basically a foot soldier for the Alphabet Mafia, came out with a quote. Now, the context of the quote, he doesn't like J.K. Rowling. Okay? He does not like J.K. Rowling because of her views on, yes, the alphabet mafia. But the quote is what I want to tie back in to Bill Maher. Referencing J.K. Rowling, Pedro Pascal said, quote, "Bullies make me fucking sick," unquote. So you got people bullying Bill Maher because they don't like what he's become. Then you've got Pedro Pascal saying, "Bullies make me fucking sick," talking about a woman, J.K. Rowling. Hey, Pedro, you're the fucking bully. You've aligned yourself with the biggest bully on the block, which is the alphabet mafia, which represents a small portion of America, a group that does not want equal rights. They want everything they want and more. It sounds like something out of a Martin Scorsese movie. So, Pedro, the next time you open your fucking mouth and start talking about bullies, look in the mirror, because you are part of a group that are the biggest bullies on the block. And some of us will stand up to you. Trust me. And thank God Bill Maher is turning into one of them. That's going to do it for Last Call. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Hope you enjoyed the weekend edition without your Uncle Dave. He'll be back next week. And you're probably all going, thank God. Some common sense returning to the show. I actually think I'm a pretty thoughtful, sane guy, but that's just me. Already told you what's coming up next week. Pop culture, politically incorrect extravaganza that we call the weekend edition. We'll be back in 7 days. Please check out the sports edition, which drops late Wednesday, early Thursday every week. But again, if sports are not your thing, we will do the pop culture shindig all over again in 1 week. So until then, take care, kids. See ya.